Hello, everyone, and welcome to Slash Film Daily for Monday, April 13th, 2020. On today's episode, we're going to talk about the latest film and TV news. This is Slash Film Editor-in-Chief Peter Sciretta, and joining me on today's podcast is Slash Film Senior Writer Ben Pearson.
Hey, what's going on?
And writers Hoai-Tran.
Hey, everyone.
And Chris Evangelista.
Hello, folks.
It is Chris's birthday, so happy birthday, Chris.
Thank you.
Happy birthday.
Yay!
So your birthday is on the 13th, which means that sometimes it's on Friday the 13th.
That's right. And when I was growing up, 13 was my lucky number because it was my birthday. And everyone was like, but that's bad luck. And I didn't care.
There's no 13th floor in any hotel you want to stay at. Yeah. Do you celebrate like when it's on a Friday? Is that more special to you?
I mean, it's always better when it's on a weekend, but yeah.
Okay. Let's jump into the news. Let's talk about a story that just broke. We had some release date changes a couple weeks back, some people pushing out of summer. We mentioned at the time that Pixar Soul was still in there, and I theorized that maybe Disney thinks that this whole thing is going to die down before the end of June. It seems like that's not the case. Summer is officially canceled. Ben, tell us about it.
Yeah, so Pixar Soul, which is the second original movie that they were going to be releasing this year, was originally supposed to hit theaters on June 19th, but now it has been officially moved to November 20th of this year, 2020, so like Thanksgiving-ish of this year. That November 20th slot originally belonged to a movie called Raya and the Last Dragon from Walt Disney Animation, and that movie has now been bumped to March 12th of next year, 2021. That slot, the March 12th slot, was originally held by an untitled live-action Disney movie, and that film has been removed from the release schedule entirely. So we aren't entirely sure what that is. I think it might have been Peter Pan, which I think was going to be directed by David Lowery. But I suspect if, everything was working in an alternate timeline right now, we would probably be hearing about casting and things like that for whatever that project would have been. But obviously everything has been sort of thrown into chaos right now. So it sounds like that project has been taken off the release schedule entirely. It's unclear whether it's going to be reworked and moved on to Disney Plus, or any number of things could happen, but that's where we are right now.
So is there any movies on the schedule right now for the summer?
Mulan? They didn't move. They moved Mulan to July, right? And then they haven't moved it off.
I think that's correct.
Yeah, July 24th, I believe, is the current date for Mulan.
Yeah, So that's technically summer.
Yeah. So wait, is Christopher Nolan's film still the summer?
Yeah, that hasn't moved either. Yeah, but again, I am 99.9% sure all of these things are moving. But as of now, Tenet and Mulan. And I mean, Wonder Woman is August, right? So that's summer. Or did that get moved to November? Some got moved to August. Black Widow. I can't keep track.
Wonder Woman got moved to August.
Right. So yeah, that's summer too, in theory. So there you have it.
So
3 movies.
So theoretically, July 17th could be the return to the movie with Tenet, and then next week could be Mulan. Theoretically.
Sure, Peter. That'll happen.
Chris, don't ruin my summer. I didn't want summer to be canceled.
Believe me, I'm and this isn't me saying ignore the quarantine, let's all go out. I would love for this to be over by summer, but I have a really bad feeling this is going to last till I feel like September is when it's like a conservative guess. September is when things might start getting back to normal, but I really don't know.
Okay, let's talk about Disney as a whole. Recently, Bob Iger stepped down, and he took the chairman role, and CEO was replaced by Bob Chapek. How is that whole thing holding up in the time of the coronavirus, HT?
Well, according to a report from New York Times, Bob Iger is reasserting control at Disney to steer the company through the coronavirus crisis. We all know that Iger announced his sudden exit as Disney CEO at the end of February, with Chapek immediately succeeding him. And mid-March, there was a sort of informal ceremony at this annual shareholder gathering in North Carolina where Iger was going to basically hand over the reins to Chapek. But immediately after that was basically the week when the coronavirus pandemic really blew up in the U.S. And that same week, a day after, Iger and Chapek closed Walt Disney World, and they effectively started to shut down things at Disney, which have seen a lot of changes. There have been the closures in theme parks, the delays of major releases like we were just talking about, shutting of productions, and the furlough of thousands of workers. So it's not clear based on this New York Times report exactly how much control Iger still has, but he apparently is working hand in hand with Chapek to manage the various crises, and is essentially, he's doing more of the PR stuff. He's been granting interviews for the past to talk about the future of Disney, whereas Chapek has not granted an interview since the pandemic began.
Yeah, that does not sound like good news for Chapek. Like, is he just too green that they don't want him speaking out to the public? Or, I don't know. I guess it's a tough situation to put a new CEO in, but it's just funny. Bob Iger keeps on trying to quit. He keeps on trying to leave Disney, and they just keep on pulling him back in.
Pull him back in.
Yeah. It's also interesting in that article, that New York Times article, there's a quote in there that says, Mr. Iger also sees this as a moment, he has told associates, to look across the business and permanently change how it operates. He's told them that he anticipates ending expensive old-school television practices such as advertising upfronts and producing pilots for programs that may never air. Disney is also likely to reopen with less office space. Now, it has that, and then Iger basically says that he doesn't remember saying that. So, So I don't know. We'll see. It's going to be interesting to see, how this company, how this world as a whole recovers from this pandemic. But I think everything we see is not going to be exactly the same as it was before this pandemic. So, okay, let's move on to Disney Theatrical. We know that they did put some films, well, not direct to Disney Plus, but they kind of pushed onward onto VOD and then to Disney Plus. Chris, can that happen with more big tentpole films?
No. One movie Disney is pushing right to Disney Plus and not even giving it a chance in theaters is Artemis Fowl, which I don't think anyone is particularly upset about. But Bob Iger during an interview talked about this very topic, and he said that while there could be smaller titles, he didn't elaborate on what they could be, and pretty much everything Disney releases feels like a big release. But he did say that smaller releases could go to Disney Plus, but big tentpole films, like Black Widow and Wonder Woman and everything else. Not Wonder Woman.
I was gonna say it's wrong studio.
That's a different studio. But yeah, like Black Widow and anything Disney that's like a big blockbuster.
Yeah.
Is not going to go onto Disney Plus, at least if Bob Iger has anything to say about it. Like Mulan, that's not going to go to Disney Plus. So I don't really know what the hell Disney considers. What
are you talking about, Chris? Mulan is coming out in July. I'm going to see it in July in theaters.
That's right. But I'm saying, like, when I was writing this, I was trying to figure out what Disney would consider not to be a tentpole film anymore. The only thing I can think of is like their Fox titles. Like they have something called like The One and Only Ivan, which is like a live action CG hybrid that has Sam Rockwell in it. Like maybe that they'll put on Disney Plus, but beyond that, everything else feels.
What about New Mutants? I feel like that's small enough, right?
I guess I don't know what they consider small at this point. Maybe New Mutants, but I don't know. It's a very weird thing. Like I would have considered Artemis Fowl to be quote unquote big, but they're pushing that. So it's a weird thing. I think the only thing we can say definitively is that big movies like Mulan and Black Widow are not going to go right to Disney Plus.
Yeah. Well, the biggest movie to ever go direct to digital probably is Trolls World Tour. Universal decided to put that out of theaters. I guess it played in some theaters, but it went direct to VOD. Ben, how did it do?
Did it play in some theaters? I don't even know if that's true. I think it just went straight to VOD. Because
really? It didn't play like any like drive-ins or anything?
Well, the ad copy said on digital and in theaters on the same day, but no theaters are open. So
I guess drive-ins maybe, yeah, but I'm not sure if drive-ins count like to the same in the same way that like traditional theater revenues are counted. I'm not sure how all of that works, Peter. We're getting into like the true nitty-gritty of box office analysis here, but yes, your point still stands that Trolls World Tour is somehow the biggest opening weekend release ever for a film released digitally. And of course, the reason for that is because everybody's inside and parents are probably going insane and they need new content to give to their kids who are all, trapped in quarantine. But evidently Trolls World Tour is such a huge hit, and we don't have the actual numbers here. Universal is supposed to be releasing the specific statistics in the coming weeks, they say. But it's the highest grossing VOD title ever in terms of revenue. And that evidently does not apply just to Universal movies, but across any studio. So we're talking like Avengers Endgame, all of that stuff. Like this blows it out of the water, apparently. And the numbers on this movie, the Trolls sequel, were approximately 10 times higher than Universal's next biggest opening day for a digital release, which I think was Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom. So that's really, really impressive. I mean, it's sort of tough to compare because this movie was available to rent for $19.99, and most movies do not cost that much, right out the gate when they go on VOD. So, there's a little bit of apples and oranges going on here, but I mean, the movie has performed remarkably well so far on digital.
What do you think that this means for the future of theatrical movies? Like, if this is a success, like, why wouldn't Universal just bypass the whole theatrical experience?
Well, I think it's a little bit of what Chris was talking about, or sort of alluding to. Like the budgets for a lot of these movies make that really just like not a reasonable financial option for a lot of these films, and other studios have been moving tons of things around and seem to still value the theatrical experience, or at least recognize that the most money they can make is in theaters instead of just dropping this stuff on VOD, even for high rental prices. So I don't know. I'm wondering how like the National Association of Theater Owners is looking at these numbers, because I think Chris was talking about this on a recent episode of this podcast where they were like, exhibitors will not forget this, that Universal decided to put Trolls directly onto VOD instead of doing a theatrical rollout like the rest of these studios, because this is the first big major studio movie that has been released this way. And for these numbers to be so big, and or we assume, according to Universal anyway, and for the this film to have such success on streaming, I wonder if they are like shaking in their boots a little bit right now and wondering about, this isn't going to be the new normal necessarily, but when the virus recedes, and when are parents going to be willing to pay 4 or 5 times more than what they're paying right now for that Trolls World Tour rental to take their kids out of the house to go see a movie in a theater again? Or are these patterns being formed right now that will sort of create a division of a new normal, as the industry sort of comes back online, hopefully? So I don't know, unanswered questions right now.
Yeah. Like, I even wondered, though, in even the context of this pandemic, like you're talking about like the future after, the dust settles and we get back to our normal lives. But like, I feel like if I'm every other studio and I'm looking at how much money Universal is making with this release going direct to VOD, like, Disney's losing what, like $30 million a day from the theme parks, and, all these companies are losing so much money. It just seems like it'd be an easy way to make some of this money back by, harnessing this situation that everybody is stuck in their homes and is looking for content to watch. I feel like one of the other studios is going to have to make a big play for this. in the meantime. But
I wouldn't be surprised if there is something sort of like Chris was talking about, like that One and Only Ivan, like a sort of a mid-tier movie. I would not be surprised to see more things like that go straight to VOD. Like obviously indie movies, that seems like the only way they're going to be able to make things happen. But I think more mid-tier stuff that might happen.
I think the secret here is that this is a kids movie, and people who are trapped in their houses with their awful children need because like an adult watching a movie with their kids isn't likely to like pirate that. They're gonna be like, whatever, I'm just gonna rent this for my shitty kids so they can shut up. And like if this were like a movie geared towards adults, I feel like that is more likely to be pirated, whereas something that's for the whole family seems more.
You don't think that adults pirate movies for their kids?
I don't know. I don't know why people would have a child at this point. Stop having kids. Just stop.
No, I think you're right, Chris. I think that's like I don't want to paint anybody with a super broad brush, but I think it's probably fair to say that like, a busy family of, a soccer mom or something is not going to take the time to like learn how to go on BitTorrent and figure stuff out versus like, teenagers who could be the intended audience for a specific type of movie. I think you're making a strong point there.
I don't know. I feel like Soccer Dad probably still pirates the movies, but who knows?
Have you met dads? They're all idiots.
I think we've had some of the I think we've had some of the best Chris lines in this podcast.
It's his birthday. He can say whatever he wants.
Yes.
Yeah.
Down with parents and also children. That's my stance.
That's the official stance of the Slash Film Daily podcast.
Yes. No children or parents. Thank you.
Okay, let's talk about Quibi. Last week we talked about how they had like 300,000 downloads on the first day, which seemed like kind of a disappointment. This week, they are basically trying to be like, no. We got a lot of downloads in the first week. Chris, tell us about that.
Right. So now they're upping the number a bit, and but more importantly than that, they're saying they're going to be pushing for TV casting sooner than expected. They claim they always intended to have Quibi available on TV, but it was not planned to happen this soon. But as everyone knows right now, Quibi is kind of useless in the sense that it was sort of designed to be, the on-the-go streaming service. You could watch it on your phone while you commute to work or while you have a lunch break or whatever like that. And we're all stuck at home right now. No one is really commuting to work. So people don't really have a need for on-the-go streaming. And Quibi obviously has caught on to this. And so now they're pushing to have the technology there to be able to, Chromecast or Apple TV or whatever you particularly use to cast your streaming service onto your TV. I'm guessing there'll be like a Roku channel too, something like that. So there's not a date in place yet. All we know is that it's just happening sooner than originally planned.
Okay. I mean, it seems stupid that they did not have it available on television sets on day one. Like this is a service that's aimed towards, youngsters and new generation. They want to have content available on every one of their devices. They want to be able to do what they are able to, like, actually everybody. I'm not even going to say the new generation is that. Like, I feel like I want content to be available on every device and be able to do with it to consume it the way I like to consume content. And it just seems so short-sighted that they launched this product without having TV. Like, I actually subscribed to the 90-day free trial because I was interested, and the fact that I can't AirPlay these videos to like my Apple TV is just insane. Like, I have not watched more than an episode of Quibi because I don't want to watch it on my phone while I'm at home, like, and I have a big TV in front of me. But HT, will the ability to watch Quibi on your TV get you any more interested in this new streaming service?
No.
No.
I have no interest in Quibi whatsoever. And the more I hear of it, the less interest I have, despite this more convenient potential rollout. I just not interested in any of the content.
You don't want to watch Punk'd?
With all the people that I haven't heard of. As the youngest millennial on this show, I don't know who the people are.
Okay, let's talk about some news that broke Friday, because Hollywood Reporter always likes to drop a few bombs on Friday afternoon. Why do they do it Friday afternoon? I don't know, but they do it. And we have some news on some reboots and some remakes. Let's start first with Disney's Robin Hood. HT, tell me about that.
Yes, so Disney is producing a live-action remake of one of its animated classics, but it's not exactly live action, and it's not going to theaters either. Disney has set the remake of Robin Hood, the 1973 animated film, which showed Robin Hood as a very hot fox, and it's going to be set for Disney Plus. It will be directed by Blind Spotting director Carlos Lopez Estrada, and it will also feature anthropomorphic animals in a live-action CG hybrid film. Carrie Grenland, who also wrote last year's Lady and the Tramp, which also went to Disney Plus, is going to be scripting this film. And just prepare for some nightmare fuel, because I'm not really sure. It's not clear yet what elements will be live action, what will be the CGI, and whether these anthropomorphic animals will be the kind of uncanny CG horrors that we saw in, for example, Cats. So this is it's an interesting project in the works, but it is much more interesting because of Carlos Lopez Estrada. Blind Spotting is just phenomenal. One of our favorite movies of the decade. I think it made our list. And it's such a strange pairing for Estrada, whose Blind Spotting is very electric and dynamic and gritty, and Robin Hood, which is, not that. It's not a contemporary, film that like Blind Spotting was. And the 1973 version was all anthropomorphic animals, and it was very charming, kind of a more comedic musical spin on the classic tale. So it's just a very odd collection of elements altogether.
Were you a fan of Disney's Robin Hood?
I was. It wasn't one of my favorite Disney animated films, but I did like it, and I did, develop a crush on the foxy Robin Hood. The character who, launched a whole generation of furries everywhere.
I feel like Robin Hood is not like considered one of like the big Disney classics, but it definitely has like a huge fan base, like a cult fan. Like it seems like a lot of people grew up watching that, and I'm wondering how it would translate with this director. I'm interested. Like I mean, I guess they could be doing some more modern like songs in here. I don't know. Like what is a Robin Hood movie with the director of Blind Spotting look like? What do you imagine it to be, HD?
I have no idea. Maybe they'll add some raps, because there was a really big element of raps in Blind Spotting. Maybe it'll have to do with more modern contemporary themes, like when they tried to make the Taron Egerton Robin Hood about Antifa, I think.
Oh, don't remind me. Okay, let's move on to Salem's Lot. They're rebooting that. Chris, tell us about it.
Yeah, so while there has been actually two different Salem's Lot adaptations, they've both been TV miniseries. So now we're getting a new reboot in the form of a feature film. And Gary Dauberman, who directed Annabelle Comes Home, and he co-wrote the two It movies, is going to direct, and James Wan is producing, which we actually knew about. We knew about their involvement before, because it was announced that James Wan was producing and Dauberman was writing the script. And now it's been revealed he's also directing the movie too.
So what do you think of Dauberman as a director?
He's not like my favorite horror director, but I really liked Annabelle Comes Home. I actually liked it the most out of all the Annabelle movies, which isn't really saying much because the first one is just awful. But he's not a terrible choice here. I mean, there could definitely be more inspired choices, but I'm open to this idea.
Yeah. Also, there is a Hellraiser reboot in development. What do we know?
Yes. So this one, David Goyer came up with a story, but he's not actually handling the final screenplay. getting a story credit. But the big news here is that David Bruckner, who directed The Ritual, and he directed a movie I saw at Sundance called The Night House, has been hired to direct the Hellraiser reboot. And this is a pretty good choice. The Ritual is a really good sort of indie horror movie. It went right to Netflix. You can watch it there now. And The Night House was a lot of fun to see, especially with like a crowd at Sundance, because it has some really big scares in it that made the audience I saw it with like lose their mind several times. So this is a pretty good choice. I mean, none of his films sort of hint at that Hellraiser gore, but that's okay. Hellraiser is one of those properties where I appreciate it, but I never loved it as much as other horror fans. So I'm actually kind of intrigued about a remake of this, because I feel like this is one of those horror classics that there actually is room for improvement.
I feel like Hellraiser has like iconic parts to it, but as a whole, I couldn't tell you what happens in any of the Hellraiser films. Like who is it? Like Pinhead? Is that his name?
Yes.
Yeah, he's iconic, and then that box is iconic, but I can't even tell you what that box does.
It opens it opens another dimension, and these the Cenobites come out of it, and they're demons, and they rip your flesh with chains. It's not great. Look, I know people love it. It's not that great.
Yeah. Okay. Our final story for today is about Disneyland's Avengers Campus. That was set to open this summer. Ben, tell me the good news. I'm going to get Avengers Campus this summer, right?
No, Peter, unfortunately not. Avengers Campus was supposed to open at Disney California Adventure on July 20th, 2020. But on Disneyland's official website, the language there has been updated to instead just say that it's coming soon instead of having that official release date there. So we don't know what the new release date is going to be. It's not really a surprise because the Disney parks have all been, closed indefinitely as the pandemic continues to spread. And Disney at one point was like, oh, we're going to reopen our doors on April 1st. And that never really seemed plausible. But they've since taken the steps of like closing everything indefinitely and not even going through the charade of like putting out a release date, a couple or an opening date a couple weeks in advance, so that they just have to then cancel or push back, further. So I think saying closed indefinitely is the smart way to go about doing this. But and as HT mentioned earlier, like the company's already issued furlough notices to its employees. I think we'd been hearing that construction has ground to a halt because they're not able to pay the contractors and stuff like that. So it's the safe and really like the most responsible move that Disney could make at this time. But it definitely sucks for people like you, Peter, who are like super psyched to get out there and, walk into the MCU kind of as it exists in theme park form.
Ben, if I don't have movie theaters to go to, if I don't have Disneyland and Avengers Campus to go to, what am I going to do this summer?
Watch a lot of good things, hopefully, instead of terrible reality shows. I don't know.
Cook more theme park foods. I love that video that you made.
Oh, did you watch that?
Yeah, I did. Actually, I watched the entire thing. I want to see more of that.
It was almost a disaster because we didn't know that you were supposed to ground the peppercorns. So we just put peppercorns in a sauce, and it was like horrible. So we had to like go and redo it. But yeah, I'll put a link to that in the show notes, and I'll talk about that later this week on the water cooler. But thanks for watching, HT. I appreciate it.
No problem.
You still got to do your YouTube video. You got to like do the HT's Kitchen, where we get to see you make all these dishes that I see Instagrams about. I mean, I guess you do some of it on Instagram story already, but
I don't have the fancy equipment you have, Peter, and then most of it is really just me like panicking and swearing. So I don't know if it'll be a good video.
That would be a fun video. Just do it on your iPhone. That's all you need.
You should build a kitchen on your roof, HT, and combine your two passions right now.
Okay. That does it for today's Slash Film Daily. You can find more of all of our work at slashfilm.com. You can find this podcast published 3 times a week on iTunes, Google, Overcast, Spotify, all the popular podcast apps. Please feel free to send your feedback, questions, comments, concerns to us at peter@slashfilm.com. And rate and read this podcast on iTunes. Tell your friends, spread the word, and we will see you on Wednesday.